Honourable members, honourable presiding officers, and honourable members, we'll go straight to the business on the third order of today's paper. Secretary General.
Notice of motion for the adoption of the report of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industry, Finance and Integration.
Yeah, thank you. Notice of motion for the adoption of the report of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industry, Finance and Integration, HRH. Honorable Mwana Makosi J. Jamini. Honorable Jamini, you move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I beg to move that this plenary assembly do adopt the report of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industry, Finance and Integration, TIFI, to the 37th Plenary Assembly Session of the SADC Parliamentary Forum, laid on the table of the House on 8 July 2015.
You beg to move?
I beg to move.
Any seconder? I have Mozambique there, Honorable Abru. Can you help with the mic?
Senhor Presidente, muito obrigada. Eu queria apoiar este importante instrumento para que nós possamos adotar ao longo desta sessão. Obrigada.
Obrigado. I call upon Honorable Jamin to present the report of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industry, Finance and Integration. Honorable Jamin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the Standing Committee on Trade, Industry, Finance and Integration, guided by its mandate in terms of Rule 41D of the Rules of Procedure, convened its meeting on Sunday, 5th July 2015 at Zimbabwe Hotel and Resort, Durban, South Africa. Due to financial constraints, the TIFI committee could not hold its meeting in May and therefore had to make use of the opportunity of the 37th Plenary Assembly to convene its session. Great appreciation is therefore expressed to the Parliament for having facilitated the early arrival of their TIFI committee members as this facilitated the holding of the committee session. Mr. President, I wish to present the credentials of the committee members as follows. The meeting was attended by 11 members, namely Honorable Mohammed Mnya, who is the chairperson from Tanzania, myself from Swaziland, Honorable Kandinda Silva from Angola, Honorable Duma G. Boko from Botswana, Honorable Ernest Yahaya from Malawi, Jaime Neto from Mozambique, Honorable Ignatius Shiwameni from Namibia, Honorable Sylvian van Munt from Seychelles, pardon me, Honorable Tasnin Motara from South Africa, Honorable Situmbeko Musokwatane from Zambia, and Honorable Innocent Konese from Zimbabwe. 2, the election of the Vice Chairperson of the Standing Committee. Chair, after Honorable Skumbuzo Ndlovu from Swaziland was moved to the Gender Committee, and since the position of Deputy Chairperson of the committee was on Swaziland, I found myself in this position, but I went through the process of being endorsed by the committee, and I was duly elected as the new vice chairperson. Number 3, mandate of the TIFI Standing Committee. The TIFI Standing Committee once again reflected on its adopted terms of reference, which amongst other commit the committee to track, deliberate and promote oversight on issues related to 1, trade and trade negotiations, 2, financial liberalization, 3, industrialization, amongst just to mention a few. Mr. President, the role and function of the committee, it became clear that it can only be realized through access to information on issues falling within the realm of the committee. And this can only be facilitated through greater collaboration between the secretariats of the SADC Parliamentary Forum on one hand and that of the SADC Secretariat on the other. And this underscores, Mr. President, what members have expressed in this plenary regarding the importance of turning this forum into a proper parliament. I go to the chosen theme of the 37th Plenary Assembly. Mr. President, the Standing Committee highly welcomed the chosen theme for the 37th Plenary Assembly, namely industrialization and SADC integration, the role of Parliament. The theme is not only important, but it is in keeping with the current agenda of SADC Summit Heads of State and Government, which amongst other reprioritized industrialization as a strategy to achieving greater results in the region's quest for development. 5, industrialization and SADC integration, the role of Parliament. Mr. President, on 5.1, I do not need to go much into 5.1 except to say you covered it very well during the opening ceremony of this plenary, whereupon you mentioned that Africa is resource-rich but remains virtually poor. Because in spite of all the riches, we are primarily poor because our net export of raw materials, which is an impediment to our prospects of economic development and job creation. Consequently, we are experiencing a serious trade deficit as we sell our raw materials very cheap to international markets and import finished products at exorbitant prices. And then we jump to 5.2, where the committee looked, during its deliberations, looked at trajectories of industrialization in Africa and the benefits of industrialization. And we noted that in Europe, industrialization started around the 18th century. Africa has tried various industrialization strategies after independence, which one were import substitutions in the 1960s to 70s. We tried structural adjustment programs in the 80s to 90s, and neoliberal export-oriented paradigm from the 1990s onwards. However, we noted that the takeoff that was expected never materialized for many countries. All the strategies have not delivered sustained growth, and Africa remains poor on the margins of the global economy. And regrettably, current high growth rates in Africa, examples being Zambia, Rwanda, Angola, etc., have not translated into poverty reduction and elimination. And we noted also that only 5 countries in Africa, being Madagascar, Mauritius, Senegal, South Africa, and Tunisia, and 3 of those being from the SADC region, have somewhat enjoyed the value of manufactured exports exceeding the value of primary exports. Continue with the report, speaking to the issues of industrialization and the importance of industrialization. We noted that its net effect would be to increase employment creation, realize high economic growth, and thirdly, to increase the income per capita and reduce poverty levels as a result of the positive correlation which exists between industrialization and income per capita. 5.3, during the sitting of the committee, we looked at case studies of industrialization, and we drew lessons and comparisons, looking at the Asian tigers, how Japan did it, how China did it. And we noted that for latecomers such as Taiwan and the majority of SADC countries, FDI-led growth should no longer be the preoccupation. Instead, there should be purposeful attempts to integrate the small, medium enterprises and the informal economy in the growth strategies. We noted that it is worth noting that South Africa's industrialization process has largely been driven by the mining industry. Chair, on 5.4, as we continue with the report, we get to the SADC industrialization strategy roadmap, which is from 2015 to 2063, a 50-year program. The strategy, Mr. Chairman, speaks to issues of agro-processing, agricultural value chains, mineral beneficiation and value addition, pharmaceutical productions, amongst others. 5.5 and 5.6, the strategy has quantitative targets and qualitative targets. We noted that in the quantitative targets, the roadmap seeks to lift the regional growth rate of real GDP from 4% annually since 2000 to a minimum of 7%, to double the share of manufacturing value added in GDP to 30% by 2030 and 40% by 2050, including the share of industry-related services, currently sitting at 15%. It also seeks to increase the share of medium and high technology production in total. Manufactured value added from the current less than 15% to 30% by 2030, and further 50% by 2050. Qualitative targets under the strategy include, amongst others, achieving major economic, socio-economic transformation at the national and regional level, which will, in the end, ultimately build a firm and enduring foundation for a modernized SADC economy. Number 6, the strategy has been evaluated, Mr. President, and an internal and external evaluation of the process of the Regional Indicative Strategic Development Plan, RISDIP, of SADC was carried out in 2014. The evaluation indicates that the region did not achieve a lot of the set milestones. Notably, the evaluation of RISDIP pinpointed the regional's failure to achieve the set regional integration targets of achieving a free trade area by 2008, custom union by 2010, common market by 2015, SADC Central Bank by 2016, monetary union 2016, and adopting a regional currency by 2018. We noted that only the first target of declaring SADC a SADC free trade area was achieved. It is clear from the onset that the targets set were ambitious and unrealistic. SADC seemed to have wholesale adopted the regional integration model, followed by Europe. This may not have been ideal as the political and economic conditions between SADC and Europe differ. Furthermore, the time taken for Europe to achieve its integration milestones seemed to be ignored. From hindsight, then there is need to monitor and learn from the current challenges bedeviling the European integration project, in which some countries are on the verge of exiting the bloc. Going to conclusions, Mr. President, the committee noted that, firstly, in accordance with the mandate of the Standing Committee, which requires the committee to advocate for promotion of the role of Parliament in the SADC integration agenda, the committee commends and supports the continuation of the engagements of the leadership of the forum with the SADC heads of state and government, as was recently done with the presidents of Botswana and South Africa, respectively. 7.3, aware of the fact that the objectives of the theme of the 37th Plenary Assembly will only be served through onward sharing of information and engagement of relevant portfolio committees within the national parliaments, and that there should be a link between the work of SADC-PF standing committees and that of the portfolio committees of national parliaments. It is proposed that the committee reports the resolutions of the 37th Plenary Assembly be transmitted to national parliaments. 7.5, acknowledging the benefits of all standing committees to meet outside the Plenary Assembly session in order to be afforded more deliberative time on the respective thematic issues. It is recommended that a clear financing strategy be devised to sustain the initiative of inaugural committee sessions outside the plenary, as was done in Gaborone, Botswana in May 2015. Resource persons and subject experts, when necessary, should be used to enhance the knowledge and engagement of the committee. 7.7, aware of the wealth of good policy intent of the SADC protocols and other legal instruments, but equally concerned with the continued slow ratification, domestication, and implementation, which process, unfortunately, deny the people of SADC the benefits of regional development and integration. The TIFI Standing Committee wishes to reiterate its earlier call for the reprioritization of SADC protocols by the SADC Summit Heads of State and Government. 7.10, while expressing support for the revised and refocused RISDIP, SADC is requested to take up and share the lessons which led to poor achievement of the targets and milestones set out in the first RISDIP. In particular, the region is cautioned against the apparent neoliberal ideology in the pursuit of development and integration objectives, as this ideological position, which underpinned the structural adjustment program, made Africa and the region worse off. We noted that, notwithstanding the reference to the Asian countries and the European integration model, is proving an operational baseline, but it should be equally acknowledged that the conditions which enables these regions to advance were different. Today, Mr. President, we have to grapple with issues of the impacts of environment degradation in our planning for development. Mr. President, I'm about to finish 7.2 of 7.12 of our report. We say we cautiously welcome the quantitative and qualitative targets set out in the SADC Industrialisation Strategy and Roadmap, our Standing Committee expressed concern that the quantitative targets, in particular, are overly optimistic when judged against current economic dynamics in the region and within individual SADC member countries. The legitimate concern, therefore, is not whether the targets may or may not be reached, but rather that the region should not regress in terms of current economic and development status. In conclusion, we looked at the role of Parliament in advancing the cause of SADC development and integration, and in particular the implementation of SADC Industrial Strategy and Roadmap and the revised RISDIP. SADC parliamentarians are individually and collectively urged to acquaint themselves with these issues and the country progress in their respective countries, track the status of ratification, domestication, harmonization, implementation of the relevant SADC protocols and other international instruments, use the platform of the legislature to request for timely updates from relevant ministries and government agencies. And lastly, Mr. President, endeavor to attract the requisite research and analytical skills which will enable parliamentary oversight of these complex issues. Mr. President, I beg to move.
Thank you very much. August House, there was a mix in who should second the motion. The committee arranged that Honorable Motara should second the motion. But our rules allow that anyone can second a motion, and I allowed the leader of delegation from Mozambique, Honorable Abru. So what we'll do at this point in time, the chair will recognize Honorable Motara to present her debate in seconding the motion, and the leader of delegation from Mozambique will be the first one to debate. I therefore call upon the seconder, Honorable Tasnim Motara, to debate seconding the report. Honorable.
Thank you, President. Mr. President, I humbly rise to second the motion on the report of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industry, Finance and Integration before the House. This report should be appreciated in the context of the report of the Food, Agriculture, Natural Resources and Infrastructure Committee, which was deliberated and passed by this August House yesterday. The passionate debate on the ownership and beneficiation of our natural resources is well noted and appreciated. The repositioning of land as an indispensable base in the mode of production is fully supported. The concern related to SADC and Africa being rich in terms of resource, but yet the poorest part of the world. The question has and remains, what is missing? For comprehensive trade to take place, for industries to flourish, for complete and total integration to take place, the land question needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency. We will not be able to build infrastructure that will support and drive our economies for as long as the land is not owned by us. SADC and Africa rightly concluded that the problem lies in the selling of our raw material cheaply to those who turn them into finished products and sell them back to us at prohibitive prices. In acknowledging this fact, SADC has derived and adopted the Industrialisation Strategy and Roadmap 2015 to 2063, which also complements the revised Regional Indicative Strategic Development Plan 2015 to 2020. It should be appreciated that this new dispensation has even changed our ideological approach to development and economic growth from one of begging to one in which we are now determined to maximally benefit from what God has given us. There is a changed approach that the donors are not necessarily the drivers of our development. Mr. President, honorable members, as we may all know, SADC is not short of good policy intents, but as a region, we have been found wanting in terms of ensuring that the people of the region benefit from the many protocols and other legal instruments. The more than 30 SADC protocols gathering dust and the first RISDP, whose implementation success in terms of its set targets and milestones is below 50%, are a case in point. Since we have enough policies at the regional and national level, what we now need is action and more action. As rightly stated in this chamber, we need to go beyond mere rhetoric on matters that are critical to us and the future generation. To this end, the role of Parliament should be brought to bear. Mr. President, it is against the aforesaid that I urge that this plenary assembly emphatically identify and commit to the role of Parliament in advancing industrialization as a strategy for economic development and deeper regional integration. Parliaments can no longer afford to remain preoccupied with the domestic legislative agenda at the expense of following and exercising oversight of the implementation of the SADC Common Agenda. We have an obligation to act nationally whilst thinking regionally and continentally. While we have a unique culture, practices, and history, we can learn many valuable lessons from Asian countries who have done well to industrialize and integrate their communities without sacrificing their sovereignty. While learning lessons, we must adapt to our own material and political conditions. In conclusion, Mr. President, I second the motion on the report of the Trade, Industry, Finance and Integration Standing Committee. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Honorable House, there's one important issue, well, equally important issue, which the chair is supposed to attend to. There are some people outside there in the holding room who would like to meet the chair. Now, our rules provide that the House has to appoint somebody else. And under the circumstances, for a short period, the House is being requested to come up with somebody to preside over temporarily until the chair comes back. We don't have to go into the issue of elections, what I think, but the chair's conscience is saying probably the host speaker would be the most appropriate person to preside. And this is in the interest of country profile as well as gender. Is that the agreement of the whole August House? So, would the host speaker come, please, and preside over?